Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Aligning Your PPC and Email Efforts for Success. My name is Martha Herdendorf, and I am the Marketing Coordinator here at Top Floor. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items I'd like to go over. There will be a dedicated time at the end of today's webinar for questions, so if you think of something during the presentation, feel free to submit through the questions control panel. You may send your questions in at any time during the presentation, and we will collect and address them during the Q&A session at the end. And with that, I will now turn things over to our presenters, Adam Bittner and Chris Caesar.
All right, sounds good. Hi guys, my name is Adam. Hope you're all doing well. I want to thank you for coming out to this webinar on how email and PPC can work together in harmony and help you achieve your business goals. Just a little bit about myself. Some technical difficulties. Can you click on that? Oops, sorry folks, 1 second. Can't seem to get the slides to go. Interesting. The mouse doesn't work. Just a couple seconds.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, we'll be right back. We're really sorry, folks. We'll have this figured out here shortly. Just bear with us for a couple more minutes here.
Okay, folks, so sorry for the technical issues. We should have everything fixed now. I'm going to do a quick test. Are you guys able to see the screen? Can anybody type in yes? Okay, awesome. All right, we are going to begin. I'm so sorry for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so.
All right, so I guess we can just take off where we left off. I was introducing myself, and I'll just go ahead and do so. I'm a digital marketing specialist by trade. I've been with Top Floor for just over a year here. I've been in the field for about 3 years total. And my focus is in SEO and email marketing. I've worked in a number of different industries, including the automotive, manufacturing, and real estate industries. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be here to talk with you today.
And I'm Chris, PPC specialist here at Top Floor. I've been in the industry for a little over 2 years. If you can't tell by my picture, I'm a proud UW-Madison alum who enjoys long walks on the beach, all things Wisconsin Badgers, and the movie Mean Girls. Maybe way too much if you ask the people I work with.
Yeah, that's true.
I worked in industries varying from B2C markets such as batteries and shoes to B2B markets like product packaging and industrial ovens. And I'm also very excited to speak with you all today. Adam?
All right, so now that our introductions are over, let's go ahead and dive into the world of email and PPC.
But Adam.
Yeah, Chris.
People say email is dead, and I never click on those PPC ads.
You know, you're absolutely right, Chris. Those are two unfortunate but very real sentiments circling email and PPC today. So let's do this. Before we get started, why don't you and I briefly talk about why email and PPC are so great? So to everybody who's listening, I want to quickly dispel any negative press you may have heard recently about how email is dead and social media is the future. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is bash social media. I think we can all agree it's one of the main pillars of the digital marketing landscape. I'm simply going to put to rest any reservations anyone might have regarding the effectiveness of email. So let's quickly run through some statistics that prove email from an ROI perspective is in fact king. So for example, here's a fun visualization provided by Kissmetrics to help illustrate the disparity. So let's say if a full cup of rice was the number of emails sent every day, all of the daily posts on Facebook would amount to only 10 grams. Daily tweets would only amount to, grains, and daily tweets would only amount to 4 grains. So it's pretty clear that the disparity is pretty apparent. 72% of customers prefer companies to communicate with them via email, and outside of work, 70% of Americans check their email while watching TV, 52% from bed, 50% while on vacation, 42% while in the bathroom, and I'm actually kind of guilty of doing this myself, and 18% while driving, and I think it's pretty clear that let's try not do this if at all. Just 2 more stats for you. According to Salesforce, 73% of B2B marketers say email marketing is essential to growing their business, and behind trade shows and PPC, email marketing was rated the 3rd highest in terms of quantity and quality of leads generated, which is pretty cool because that's exactly what Chris and I are talking about, PPC and email, how they can work together. So it's pretty clear email is here to stay. What can you tell us about PPC, Chris?
Yeah, so when I talk to any of my friends or relatives about what I do, many of them immediately proceed to tell me about how they hate PPC ads and consider them just spam. But in reality, they're actually very effective. In a study conducted by WordStream, they're a highly respected company throughout the PPC industry. They found that when a user conducts a search with what they described as high commercial intent, PPC ads are clicked on by nearly a 2-to-1 margin. So to put this in layman's terms, this means that nearly 2/3 of people click on an ad rather than an organic listing when they are looking to buy something. In another study conducted by Ofcom, it's a company in the UK that could be compared similarly to the FCC here in the United States. They found that only about 50% of people can even tell what an ad is and the purpose it serves within a search engine results page. So while you look at this graph here, the top bar does indicate that 60% of people could tell what the ad itself was, but there was still an overlap of why they thought the ad was there. Some of them thought that the ads were placed there because they were the best or most relevant results, or they believed that the ads were the most popular results chosen by other people. Now, as a PPC specialist, I'd love to be able to tell you that, yes, the ads will give you the best and most relevant results, but unfortunately, this isn't always the case. So in the end, really only about half the people knew that the results were in fact advertisements, and the only reason they were in place was because people were willing to pay Google money for someone to click on it. Lastly, let's not forget the main reason that PPC ads exist. This is how Google makes its money. If PPC ads weren't effective and people really didn't click on them like they claimed to not, they would either exist in an entirely different manner, more suited to Google making its money, or they wouldn't exist at all. And then as far as we know, Google itself as we know it wouldn't exist today.
Yeah, and that'd be kind of an awful world if Google wasn't with us.
That'd be terrible. So Adam, how about we just dive right into it?
All right, so we're going to talk about 6 circumstances in which the harmony between email and PPC can be advantageous. The first, we'll talk about email list growth and how PPC can really ramp up your address acquisition rate. We're going to talk about optimizing calls to action and how PPC can help you test and choose the right calls to action for email. We're going to touch briefly upon segmentation and how your email segments can actually directly benefit your PPC campaigns. Then we'll briefly talk about remarketing and how PPC can take pressure off your customers' inboxes without losing brand awareness. And then the last 2 topics that we'll be speaking about is image optimization. First, if you should be using images in the first place, and if you do, how PPC can help you find the most engaging images. And then finally, Gmail ads and how your email data can help increase open rates for PPC Gmail ads. So to kick things off, let's talk about email list growth and its arch nemesis, list churn, or rather the gradual and inevitable degradation of your email list, and how PPC, Chris, can help fight that. So what do I mean by the gradual and inevitable degradation of your email list? This is something I'm finding a lot of businesses are unaware of, which is kind of unfortunate because it is a scary statistic. One way or another, 25 to 30% of contacts stop reading your emails each year. That's a lot. Now, obviously, this depends on the business industry and content strategy quality. Naturally, some clients will see higher churn rates than others, but across the board, research shows that up to 30% of your list will stop opening your emails every year, and this is what we refer to as churn rate. Now, this can be due to a number of reasons. The most measurable being unsubscribes, hard bounces, which basically means the email doesn't exist, or spam complaints. The less measurable reasons are that your emails are being sent to your contacts junk folder. Perhaps it's an email account they don't use very often. For example, I have an account that I only use when I'm signing up for promotional contests, and I honestly can't remember the last time I logged in. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm the only one that engages in that practice. Or perhaps the most frustrating, they've completely lost interest altogether. So even though they see your email, they don't click on it because they've decided your content is no longer useful to them. Whatever the reason, the point is that you need to combat churn by continuously investing in ways to acquire new contacts. Now, how can you do this? There's a number of ways here. This is only 6. This is by no means exhaustive, but you can use pop-ups. You can place subscription fields in the header or footer of your website. You can ask for email addresses at the end of blog posts. You can create landing pages around an offer. And then, I think we all know that social media contests have always been a popular way to garner email addresses as well as trade shows. We're going to talk about the first 4 here since it's a little bit more germane to this presentation. So let's talk about pop-ups. So generally speaking, you can integrate pop-ups that ask for email addresses, hopefully in exchange for something. I think we all can agree that pop-ups are probably the most hated facet on a website. They're downright intrusive, but the fact of the matter is that they work, especially when integrated strategically. For instance, if you're offering something in exchange for an email address, for instance, say a white paper, an industry report, or a training course, the more relevant that offer is to the reader, the better your chances of acquiring an email address are. So be sure to really think about what your customers and potential customers will find useful. If you choose not to use pop-ups, you can simply place an email subscription field in the footer of your website. I've also seen them placed in the header sometimes. The problem with this approach, in my mind, is that although it's as unobtrusive as it gets, there's rarely room for an offer, a value proposition, or a call to action, which actually can be implemented in a pop-up. In turn, you're relying purely on the user's perceived value of return. And I think we're all aware that with each passing year, we're becoming more and more protective of our inbox. So naturally, subscription rates for email gathering tactics like this are much lower than pop-ups. You can also place an email subscription field at the end of a blog post, again, hopefully with some kind of offer. I like this approach because it is timely. A reader is more likely to provide their email address when they've read something useful you've written and feel you can provide them with more useful content down the road. So be sure to take advantage of that willingness and ask them for their email address at the end of a blog post. The last approach we're going to cover is the landing page, and this is by far my favorite because it combines all of the strengths of the previous three tactics. First of all, it's unobtrusive. There's nothing popping up on a landing page. That would be pretty pointless. And users will only navigate to it if they feel like it. It also provides useful information, an offer, and a call to action. The other thing I like about landing pages is that you can create social media and PPC promotional campaigns to drive traffic to the landing page. You can obviously do this for blog posts as well, but blog posts have more than just garnering email addresses as a goal. They also try to educate on a deeper level. So naturally, there's usually a lot more reading involved. Landing pages, on the other hand, have one purpose, and that's to convert the reader. Hence, they're more concise. They have only important information, and they make it very clear what is expected from the reader, which is why you will always see higher conversion rates with landing pages. So on that note, I'll let Chris explain exactly how PPC can help grow your email list through the use of landing pages.
Thanks, Adam. So you've got this great landing page ready to collect someone's email, but you have to get traffic to that said page. One very effective way to drive your traffic via PPC is the use of display ads. You can use various targeting methods for these display ads, be it keywords as you would in a search campaign, manage placements where you can tell Google the exact sites you would like your ad to show, or more general broad topics. You can target your ads to people who may be interested in your product to drive people to that landing page that Adam did speak to. By offering them your piece of content in exchange for your email, your list will then continue to grow. Another way to promote this content would be through search ads. Again, your primary objective being growing your email list. You can bid on keywords related to industry issues that your free content addresses. As you can see in the examples here, anything from a contact us page or a promotional offer in exchange for an email sign up can be effective in collecting these email addresses as well. You can also use Gmail to increase your traffic. With targeting methods similar to that of the Google Display Network, we can get promotional emails into both the social and promotions folders, as you can see here, of customers' inboxes. These typically have a higher open rate than a search or a display ad and come at a very low cost per open, typically anywhere from 6 to 15 cents per open. You're only going to pay when someone does open the email as well. If they can continue to your site, forward it on to a friend, or take any other interaction with this ad, you don't have to pay a second time. Now, if we take a look at what this first ad here would look like if we opened it, this is what we get. There are many different things we can test with this email copy, the image, the text, the layout, the positioning of things. But let's start with a call to action.
Actually, I have a quick question for you before we continue, Chris. So do you actually, just to confirm, do you actually need a person's email address to send them a Gmail ad?
No. While that is one method of targeting you can use to target your customers, which I will get into a little bit more detail coming up here.
Mm-hmm.
The answer is no. There are different methods of targeting. Like I said, just keywords. You can't really have a managed placement telling Google I want to show on a different website because your website is going to be Gmail.
Right.
And the topic targeting as well is available.
Okay. Very cool. So that then brings us to the next way in which email and PPC can work together, and it has to do with the optimization of those all-important calls to action you put in your email. Most of you are probably aware that calls to action are those buttons that ask readers to do something. It can be to download a white paper, call a phone number, submit an email address, or simply click through to a landing page. When it comes to email, calls to action are one of the most important aspects because it's the step that motivates people to click through to your website. So keeping that in mind, there are 4 questions you need to ask yourself when creating a call to action. The first being, is it noticeable? This is pretty self-explanatory. The last thing you want is for your call to action to go unnoticed, basically negating all that time you spent writing, designing, and building the email. So make sure it stands out. Wrap it in a bright color and style it to look like a button. I think we can all agree the green call to action in this Firefox email is pretty noticeable. You also want to make sure that it is descriptive. Sometimes the phrase learn more is all you need, but the grand majority of the time you can do better. For example, if you're educating your customer base on more competitive pricing, instead of the call to action in your email reading learn more, try something like lower my bottom line. In essence, you want to speak to the problem, not simply highlight the next step in the process. So taking another look at the Firefox email on the left here, I'm getting a lot more information than I would have if it simply said learn more. Does it set the correct expectations? This is closely related to being descriptive. When someone clicks on your email's call to action, will the next step make sense? If your email call to action reads lower my bottom line, the landing page it leads to better have information on how your new processes are going to lower my company's bottom line. This might seem a bit obvious, but you'd be surprised at how many companies try to bait the click only to switch the offer. Again, if we take a look at the Firefox call to action, when I click on that button, I expect a download to be waiting for me on the next page. And then finally, is it enticing? When you take into account the 3 factors that I just covered, your call to action needs to be so enticing your readers can't help but click on it. So let's say you have 2 really noticeable, fantastically descriptive, and enticing calls to action that set the right expectations. Which one should you use in your email? Well, Chris, I think that you can use PPC to help figure out which one will get the better response, right?
Absolutely. You can use PPC to test which call to action is better, because obviously if you randomly pick one of your calls to action, you run the risk of choosing the one that's actually worse at generating conversion, whether or not you think it is the better one. Now, for the record, we're just going to detail here just one way to test your calls to action. There are a plethora of other things to test. It can be the color of the button, the position of the button on the page, the ad that's driving your traffic there, so on and so forth. But for the sake of time, we're just going to talk about this one method. The best way to conduct this would be taking it back to good old college stats, A/B test. You create a PPC campaign that drives traffic to the page you wish to test. The first thing you're going to do is build out two different landing pages. Then build out your PPC campaign with identical ads targeting all that. And the only difference is going to be the landing page to which your 2 ads direct. Everything else will be identical on the page as well, except for that call, the text, and that call to action button. It's a very low cost, low risk strategy compared to sending an email because it won't be boom or bust. As more and more people land and interact with the page, one will end up standing out as a better performer. After you collect a significant amount of traffic to each page, you can then determine what I'd like to call a winner based on which call to action does get a higher conversion rate. And take that winning call to action, drop in your promotional email.
All right, sounds good. Just to quickly clarify, Chris, you do actually have 2 live landing pages on the website that you're sending the traffic to.
Yep, it'll be two separate pages. The only way you'll be able to get there, it won't be in your main navigation of your page. It'll be 2 separate pages. Only you can get to it by paid search.
Mm-hmm.
And then your 2 ads, which will also be exactly the same. The only difference will be the landing page.
The call to action, right?
Yes, the call to action within the landing page.
Right.
And then based on that, you see that's the only difference between the 2. You should therefore be able to conclude which one is the better call to action.
So how do you know when the test is over?
So like I said, sort of taking it back to college statistics, what you're going to have to do is in the A/B test, you look for statistical significance. It's really hard to say. If you just do something as simple as Google A/B significance test, there's dozens of results, probably even hundreds of calculators out there that'll do it for you. You just type in your numbers, whether it be impressions and clicks and conversions, whatever it is you're measuring, and they'll be able to tell you this is our X%. We're X% confident that this is the better performing.
Okay.
Whatever it is you're testing.
So I mean, you can just simply Google
yeah.
significance test and something will pop up.
You more than something you'll get.
Okay.
Dozens of results.
It brings back fond memories of my statistical courses in college. Okay. Anyway, so that brings us to segmentation and how email can actually be beneficial for your. Yeah, okay, well, we'll get there shortly. Beneficial for your PPC campaigns. But before we get into that, let's take a step back and briefly talk about what list segmentation actually is. List segmentation is when you divide your email contacts into groups with similar interests, behaviors, or characteristics. You do this because it allows you to send more targeted, relevant content to those groups of customers, and it has been proven to increase engagement significantly. Now, you can segment contacts basically however you like. The sky is really the limit when it comes to segmentation. But some popular ways to segment your lists include by product or service. So people interested in one particular product or service only receive information on that product or service. You can segment by industry. So, for example, manufacturing, education, government, what have you. Naturally, knowing your contact's industry will allow you to add another level of personalization. You can also segment by location, namely by zip code, city, state, or even time zone. And time zone is pretty important to businesses that have a national footprint. For example, if you want your contacts in New York and California alike to receive an email at 8 a.m., you better have time zone segments set up. And then if it makes sense, you can also segment by job function. Again, this list isn't exhaustive, but I personally like to do this. Your email list probably contains a mix of different job functions, C-suite employees, customer service, salespeople, plant managers. There are a lot of job functions out there, some of whom are decision makers when it comes to buying your product. So segmenting by each important job and speaking to their pain points and how your product or service can help them makes sense. Now, the cool thing is that you can actually take those segments from your email and hand them right over to the PPC guy, right, Chris?
Absolutely. We can put those segments to good use. Once you have your segmented email list, regardless of how you acquired them, digitally or not, you now have the ability to run what are typically called identity-based PPC ads. You have enough information where you can become incredibly specific since you have the list segmented by location, industry, whatever it may be that you would like to target. This is what Google calls customer match. You take your lists, upload them into AdWords, and then build out a campaign speaking specifically to this group of people. Google can take your list of emails and match them to the corresponding Google account. You can then use this match list to aggressively target these users. It can be tricky though, since not all emails, especially people's work email, do have a Google account associated with it. Google does actually need to be able to match 1,000 users before these ads can run, and so they typically recommend having an upload count of anywhere between 2,500 and 4,000 emails, depending on the industry, just because their match rate can vary greatly, especially when you're dealing with people's work emails. So if we want to take an example here, you just collected a list of emails from people at a trade show interested in your industrial plumbing service. Assuming your list is now large enough, you can tailor search ads to these people. Your ad could read something along the lines of, hey, thanks for your expressing interest at X trade show we just met you at. Why not try out our plumbing service? You then have the ability to maintain a consistent message between what the customers see from both your PPC ads and the emails you send them as well. This also now opens the opportunity for cross-selling or reselling of your products. Sticking with that industrial plumbing example, let's say you have a customer who's already a client of your industrial plumbing service. You know they have a building that requires plumbing, so that building must also need HVAC service as well, but you don't currently perform that service from them. What you can then do, take your segmented list of people who are my plumbing customers, but now my HVAC customers, and run ads that say, hey, you already get your plumbing service through us. Why not see what our great HVAC experts can do for you too? Another way to look at it, as I mentioned, would be reselling. You sell any sort of machine. That machine is no doubt going to need consumables, oil, service, etc. at some point. If someone finds you in a catalog and gives you a call, you get their email address in the process of that phone call. And if for whatever reason they lose your phone number and the next time they need oil for that machine, they take their search to the internet. You can then hit them with an ad reminding them who you are and that you're still there for all their maintenance machine needs. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, that's creepy.
Oh, God.
Creepy, I know. I don't want to get that specific with my potential customers. Actually, on the contrary, Google recently conducted a study that found that 69% of online consumers did agree that these hyper-targeted ads actually do have a positive benefit for your brand and what consumers think of you. Think about it this way. I can give you two landing page options. The first one is just going to be a general page with some information that may be helpful for you, but you'll need to spend some more time on my website digging through the different pages to find the information that you're actually looking for. Second option is a landing page that was built specifically for you. The page touches slightly on what you do already know about my business, as well as great specific information that you need to follow through on what you're actually looking for, with an optimized call to action at the end, getting you in contact with the correct person for the work you do need completed. Which one are you going to choose? Obviously, you're going to choose the second one. It's going to save you so much time and effort. And then Google will also be able to understand this, and it'll significantly end up helping your PPC campaigns in many other ways that are outside of the scope of this presentation. Now, if you're thinking, I don't feel comfortable giving Google my email list for privacy reasons, don't worry. Google takes the email addresses, as you see in step 1 here, only to match with the corresponding Google account, as you see in step 3. Step 4, they delete all the emails. As you then step 5, you see that all that's left is what they call their customer match audience. They give them, for lack of a better term, an ID number, which is not identifiable, and then just store that so they know who they're hitting with ads.
So it's pretty clear that segmentation can be just as powerful in PPC as it can be in email.
Absolutely.
So that's pretty awesome. All right, well, that brings us to remarketing. And, you know, for me, I think this is a very cool, very powerful, but kind of creepy tactic that companies can use. For anybody who's not aware of what remarketing is, basically when you visit a website, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, your browser installs a cookie, which then follows you around the internet, bringing with it ads that try to get you back to the site. It's an awesome functionality that can indirectly help email, which Chris will talk about briefly. But first, just to lay the groundwork really quickly, let's take a step back and talk about the 3 factors you'll need to take into account when developing an email marketing strategy. And they are audience, content, and email frequency. So before you start designing, writing, and sending campaigns, you obviously need to define your audience. Once you get a grasp on the people reading your emails, it'll be much easier to decide what to say to them, which will be your content. After you figure out who your audience is, you need to figure out what you're going to say to them. And your business goals should help point any content marketing endeavors in the right direction. But what we'll be talking about today is frequency, or how often you send your content to your email list. And this is really one of the biggest areas of uncertainty in the email realm. People are always asking how often emails should be sent because they don't want to scare off customers by sending too often. And it's a logical concern. as you see here, these are the results from a survey conducted by Campaign Monitor, which is a top email service provider, highlighting why subscribers report email as spam. And as you can see, the majority of responders say they reported spam because they were emailed too frequently. The survey also looked into how businesses can improve their email efforts, and unsurprisingly, the responses were much the same: email less frequently. So where does PPC fit into all of this? What I personally like about PPC is how it can help alleviate pressure on customers' inboxes. So let's say you send emails pretty frequently, a few times a week, maybe even once a day, and you notice unsubscribe and spam rates are a bit high. You can try sending fewer emails and supplementing your email marketing with PPC remarketing campaigns so you don't lose any brand awareness, right, Chris? I think that's how it works.
Yeah. While there is such a thing as sending too many emails, that's really not the case with remarketing ads. Almost. In another study conducted by our good friends at WordStream again, they found that conversion rates actually increase the more someone sees a remarketing ad. Their frequency caps, which would be the amount of time someone can see an ad, suggest letting someone see an ad as many as 10 to 12 times per day. Similarly, thing that people concern themselves with, usually irrationally, is ad fatigue. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be rotating your ad copy. It's definitely a good idea to get fresh ideas into ads every few months or so. But what I'm saying here is don't be concerned necessarily with following quote-unquote people around the internet.
So 10 to 12 times per day.
Yeah, I know it does seem like a lot, but the research that this came from goes further on and found that if you're already familiar with the brand, it can be more effective. So if it's just a display ad, say I looked at a car and then I start seeing different ads from different car manufacturers that weren't the website I was on. Those are the ads that are not going to have as high of conversion rates because it's the targeting setting. Google knows that I'm looking at a car, but it's not the car I was looking at or the brand I was looking for. But if it's a place that I've already been to, I was at an exact dealership, and then that dealership hit me with an ad of the exact car I looked at. Those are the ads that are typically going to have higher conversion rates, and they do wear off, not at a slower pace.
Okay, gotcha. Well, that brings us to how PPC can help email marketers choose the most engaging images for their email. But again, as probably you've noticed, I'd like to take a step back and talk about the implications of images, whether you should be incorporating them at all, and what the right text-to-image ratio is to help you best avoid spam filters. So is it actually better to go with simple text, like the email on the left, or rely more on images, like the email on the right? While some industries like retail and travel specifically prefer to use image-based emails to deliver a pretty design, I really don't recommend it for an entire email. And there are two main reasons for this. First, image-heavy emails don't take mobile recipients into consideration. It can take forever to download a huge image on a mobile device. And second, too many images or too large of an image compared to text in an email can be considered spammy. So adding more text and or reducing the number and size of images can help with this. So that being said, what is the perfect ratio? Unfortunately, there's no hard answer, but a good rule of thumb is a 60-40 text-to-image ratio. That's a generally accepted number. Naturally, it is okay if you don't adhere exactly to the 60-40 text-to-image ratio rule, but the best thing you can do is to test it for yourself and see what works with your readers. So taking this into consideration, here's a quick tip for you guys. Make sure the most important information is in text form, and then use images to supplement this information. So let's say you've decided you'd like to use images in your email. Chris, can you tell us how PPC can help you choose which images to use for maximum engagement?
Right, so you're going to use an image, but which one is the best image? Let's take this back to a good old PPC A/B ad test. Build out two sets of display ads. Again, everything else remaining the same. You're targeting your landing page, your calls to action. Again, this time, the only difference is going to be the image. Run the ads for a period of time long enough, again, to accrue your statistically significant amount of impressions and clicks. After that, see which images have the highest click-through rate. That image then will be determined as your winner, and take it and put it in your emails.
So just out of curiosity, from your experience, are you able to predict which image might win this test right here?
That's a good question. I'd like to think that I have an opinion.
It's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, as I found is what my thoughts on things can sometimes be right, sometimes be wrong. 50 chance.
I think my money's on the right one. Seems
that's the way I'm leaning too. Is the black text on the yellow. So then let's bring that on to the Gmail ads. More specifically, how optimal email subject lines can help you in the creation of PPC Gmail ads. So bringing back that original Gmail ad that I mentioned earlier, we really have much more limited space to reach our customers here as opposed to a typical search ad or a display ad. We now only have one short 25-character subject line and a brief 100-character pre-header text limit. Adam is now actually going to walk us through the best practices in making these enticing enough to encourage our customers to open said email ad, be it a paid Gmail ad or one sent through your mailing list.
Yeah, so what can we do to help increase open rates on Gmail ads? The good news is that, well, I guess it's all about the subject line, first of all. And the good news is that the rules that apply to writing regular email subject lines also apply to writing Gmail ads. We're going to go through, I think I have 6 here. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but a really good place to start when you're putting together your subject lines. You can try creating a sense of urgency. This is a very popular tactic and one you might already be taking advantage of. Essentially, you're creating a fear of loss reaction in the recipient. So assuming the offer is good enough, you'll almost always get a great response out of creating a sense of urgency. You can also ask a question. Questions naturally provoke answers, and emails with questions as subject lines tend to provoke opens and replies. This is because they get the reader to think about how the subject matter applies to their own life and arouses a sense of curiosity to learn more about the subject or solution you can provide. Naturally, you want to try to ask questions relating to the recipient's past experiences or pain points to show that you can empathize. You can provide a benefit. This is pretty much marketing 101, focus on the benefits and not the features. People really don't care about your product's latest technology, let alone what you call it. They only care about things like how it's going to make them a better person, how it's going to make their lives easier, or how it's going to make them look good in front of their peers and superiors. By writing a subject line that highlights a benefit, you cut straight to the source of the problem and create a deeper, more urgent curiosity in how your solution can solve it. You can also give a command. Remember, we're trying to get people to open the email, so why not just basically tell them to? This is pretty much building a call to action in your subject line. As we touched on earlier, calls to action can be very effective. That's why we implement them all over our websites. So there's no reason it can't be effective in an email subject line as well. You can create what's called a curiosity gap. This is an extremely effective tactic to inspire email opens. The idea behind the curiosity gap is that you tease at the idea that there's a way to solve a problem your subscribers want to solve. However, they don't give away a solution in the subject line. The recipient is left with an information gap, and if it touches on a real pain point, can provoke them to open the email to learn about your solution. And finally, you can also try being humorous or surprising. It's no secret people enjoy humor, and if you really get them to chuckle with a funny or witty subject line, an email open isn't far behind. The only issue with this is that it's very difficult to be genuinely funny, and most of the time brands unfortunately miss the mark. So do be careful if you do try to use this tactic. With that, that brings us to the end of our webinar. And hopefully you enjoyed it and learned a lot. You know, Chris and I definitely had a good time presenting. And I guess we're going to go into questions and answers.
Yeah, we do have a little bit of time left, and so a couple of questions came in during the presentation. So, Adam, take it away.
Okay, so where am I reading here? How does Google see the pop-ups?
I'm going to read out loud.
Yeah, so the question is, how does Google see the pop-ups for email capture? Do they frown upon that, or does that not matter to them in terms of getting penalized? So I guess that's for me. Google doesn't necessarily see the pop-ups. If we're talking about the pop-ups that we're using for garnering email addresses, I'm not sure if
I think it means on the landing page.
On the landing page.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be any pop-ups on a landing page.
The pop to get the email address, I believe it's asking.
Right. If we're using the pop-ups just anywhere on the website. That's not. If I'm understanding the question correctly, it's not really an issue. As you know, this is just generally we're collecting as a business, we're collecting the address, and then I am giving as the email specialist that address to Chris, who is the PPC specialist. So the email doesn't get funneled directly to Google. It still goes through whatever email software we're using. I hope I understood that question correctly.
Okay. Were there any other questions that anyone had for Adam and Chris? Okay, here's another one. Why couldn't you do the same landing page but different links to get there, and then check Google Analytics and email analytics to test the referral source?
You can pretty much A/B test however you want to. There's a lot of ways. You can test which source is the most effective as far as garnering conversions. We just kind of focused on the call to action because that's one of the main ways that companies are using A/B testing. I don't know, Chris, if you have any. Yeah,
I believe if this is referring to the different calls to action, again, like I said, that could be one thing you do. But like I said, I guess I just had a different idea of this question in my head, and then you sort of answered it. So,
what did you think about?
So same landing page, but different links to get there to test your calls to action. What I was thinking, you could do that the same as the two ads.
I think that's what we focused on, right?
Yeah.
We had two of the same ads.
Same ad, and so then technically, as far as the user is concerned, the links will be the same, but from what you see on the back end, the links are different because while the pages are going to be identical and you're not going to find them within the context of the actual website itself, that's going to be, the link will be different.
Okay. Okay, we've got one more. How are you integrating keyword strategies into email and PPC efforts?
So, Adam, I don't know how you talk about keywords within emails, but within PPC, I'm sure you can attest to this too, is the goal is to find out what people are searching. So if you're not exactly sure, start off with a little more broad concepts and keywords. Go in and look and see what they're searching. So you take those, then once you see that, you get more exact with the keywords you bid on. And as you get more exact with the keywords you bid on, you then work those more specific keywords into your ads. And then so once in a perfect world, you're bidding on the exact things people are searching all the time, and your ad is going to be exactly telling them what they're looking for. But again, that's a perfect world, and that's very rarely, if ever, going to happen. Adam, I think you would be able to say the same thing. Is if I see that people are searching this thing, and we're bidding on those keywords, putting in our ads, you're going to want to put some of those same concepts and
within the email?
Within the email.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to speak. You want to make sure that you're using that connotation that your customers are using just so you can sort of empathize. That's really important. But yeah, as far as like conducting a pretty in-depth keyword research, so like as you said, if those keywords appear in a person's inbox, those are what Gmail is going after, correct? Correct. Yeah, so it's pretty much just, there's a whole process that you can use as far as keyword research, looking at competitors' websites. There's a bunch of powerful tools that help you garner what people are actually entering into search engines. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay. Well, I think if there are no other questions for Chris and Adam, that will conclude today's webinar. And I, again, want to apologize for the earlier technical difficulties, and thanks for hanging on the line. We really appreciate you attending today's webinar, and stay tuned for a follow-up email within the next 24 hours with the recorded presentation. And we hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you.